While sleeping, Olimpia was awakened by her phone's vibration. She quickly searched for the source among more than a dozen mobile phones. Upon seeing the message on the screen, she rushed downstairs, smashed all the phones with a hammer, and threw the SIM cards into a blender to destroy them completely. Once everything was ready, Olimpia opened the villa gate. A short while later, a fully armed police team arrived at the entrance. Hearing footsteps outside, she stepped out and said, "You've finally arrived." She had been waiting since 7 a.m. with the door already open. She urged them to hurry because time was running short. Such a large police force was mobilized to arrest this woman because she was a drug lord. Her life was considered a legend. She was Olimpia, the beautiful drug queen of Spain. Next, let's discuss the Spanish TV series adapted from real events, titled The Olimpia Family. Olimpia originally had a happy family with a devoted husband and 2 adorable daughters. However, her life collapsed when her husband was diagnosed with cancer. Relying solely on his 2 months of unemployment benefits, the family couldn't make ends meet. Their 3rd child was about to be born. With no other choice, Olimpia took her 2 daughters to a nearby supermarket and started shopping for free. Taking advantage of the security guard's inattention, she stuffed goods into her young daughter's stroller. To avoid suspicion at checkout, she only bought a small pack of gum, but her older daughter's bulky coat caught the cashier's attention. As they left the store, the mother and daughters walked away quickly. After just a few steps, the hidden items in the older daughter's coat began to fall out. The supermarket security caught up immediately and took them to see the manager. Out of pity for the 2 children, the manager didn't call the police. Olimpia showed no concern. As for someone about to go hungry, dignity meant nothing. One might think this failure would make her stop, but she wanted to continue by taking the children to a Chinese store. In the end, she got some food from the Chinese supermarket, but it wouldn't last long. That night, while the family slept, she sneaked downstairs to the eatery below just to steal a few sugar packets. Her movements were swift and decisive, clearly not her first time. At that moment, a woman secretly selling cannabis appeared in the eatery. Her appearance changed Olimpia's fate completely. The woman named Marga was Olimpia's high school classmate. To make ends meet, Olimpia proposed partnering with Marga to sell cannabis. Marga was eager for her to join because, disguised as a pregnant woman, she could sell more and was less likely to get caught. They agreed to collaborate quickly. Although Marga took a high commission, dealing in drugs would earn far more than a regular job. Olimpia approached her close friend Trini, who owned a hair salon, asking her to watch the daughters in exchange for 2 high-quality cannabis joints. Seizing the opportunity, Olimpia went to the nearby square and began her work as a drug dealer. Each day when she returned home, she hid the earned money in a detergent box to escape the worry of meals. Occasionally, she would take her children out for a lavish meal at a restaurant, but the job wasn't smooth sailing. That day, she and Marga encountered a thug who had just been released from prison. He was a notorious gangster in the area, and the spot where they were selling was in his territory. Facing his threats, Marga handed over the money obediently and told Olimpia to give up the remaining drugs. Unwilling to see her business cut off by a thug, Olimpia stepped into a nearby bakery, grabbed a knife from the counter, and chased after him. The thug had probably never seen such a crazed woman. When the knife was at his throat, his arrogant attitude vanished completely. She declared firmly that she would sell wherever she wanted and it wasn't his business to interfere. However, something even more worrying happened to Olimpia. During a family gathering, her brother Manuel discovered her secret. If her father found out, she might be kicked out of the house. For Spanish women, tradition dictated that their responsibility was to care for husband and children and preserve the family. But no one knew Olimpia's reason for doing this was simple. She wanted to earn money to treat her husband's illness. No matter who tried to stop her, she wouldn't change her mind. She demanded that Manuel not tell their parents or her husband, or she would deal with him too. That day, Olimpia and Marga went to the square to sell as usual. Suddenly, a car on the road caught her attention. The person in the car was the thug she had humiliated. Seeing the car heading toward Marga, Olimpia shouted her friend's name to warn her, but it was too late. As Marga turned, the thug drew a gun and fired. 2 shots rang out and Marga collapsed immediately. Then he fired 2 more shots at Olimpia. Luckily, she reacted quickly and hid behind a bench to escape unharmed. The man who had shot in broad daylight didn't dare linger and turned the car around to flee. Once he was gone, Olimpia ran to Marga, but the friend who had changed her life's fate lay there no longer breathing. At the funeral, Sergio approached Olimpia saying she must know who killed his sister. That night, Sergio took her out to search the streets for the killer. They spotted the thug quickly. Marga's brother got out of the car, said nothing, and shot him straight in the head. This shot not only avenged Marga but also eliminated the threat to Olimpia. However, Her best friend's death made her feel immensely guilty. Seeing the risks of the criminal path were too great, she couldn't bear it. So Olimpia threw all the drugs into the trash, determined to return to her family and continue a peaceful life. Unexpectedly, just as she decided to abandon the old path, her water broke and the family welcomed their third child. Thanks to the money saved from selling drugs earlier, Olimpia could sustain the family's life temporarily. However, the money would eventually run out and Alex not only couldn't help but was becoming increasingly despondent due to his illness. Refusing treatment, unable to persuade her husband, Olimpia turned to the doctor. The doctor said that in his current condition, Alex had only 1.5 years left, at most no more than 2. To her question of whether it could be cured, the doctor could only shake his head helplessly. Not believing the doctor's conclusion, Olimpia began searching for information online. An article about a famous singer who had been cured of cancer caught her attention. The hospital was advertised as having a 90% cure rate, which etched itself into her mind. The exorbitant treatment costs forced her once again toward the path of drug dealing. To resume her old work, she needed a supplier. But no one knew where Marga had gotten her supply from before, so this path was blocked completely. At that moment, Trini suddenly remembered someone and asked if Olimpia knew a person named Valeria. Through Trini's introduction, Olimpia met Valeria and her husband, who were drug dealers. Their transporter had died in a car accident, so they urgently needed a reliable replacement. The next day, Olimpia took on the task. She rode a motorcycle to a remote villa and met the dealer named Julio. Her job was simple: take the drugs from Julio and deliver them to Valeria and her husband. Transporting goods always carried risks, especially since police could set up checkpoints at any time. But for Olimpia that wasn't a problem because she was too familiar with all the roads there and could avoid police checkpoints easily. After a successful deal, she received a generous payment. As usual, she hid the money in the detergent box and noted the amounts in a small notebook. When not busy, she thought of every way to motivate Alex. She hired an actor to pretend to be a friend's relative to provide psychological counseling for him. But after just a few sentences, Alex chased the person out of the house. Seeing it ineffective, Olimpia placed her hopes in witchcraft and spirituality. Though she knew these were just spiritual comforts, as long as they could help change her husband's mindset, she was willing to spend money to try. She didn't expect miracles. She just hoped Alex could persevere until the day he could be taken to the US for treatment. But things weren't as simple as she thought. That day she returned after picking up goods from Julio as usual and delivered them to Valeria. But today Valeria wasn't home. Her husband received the goods but refused to pay and even attempted to assault her. Olimpia grabbed the nearby ashtray and smashed it hard on his head. Just then Valeria returned home. The man immediately accused Olimpia of trying to steal money. She just wanted her payment and to leave, but unexpectedly Valeria pulled out a knife. Though she knew she was being shortchanged, drawing from Marga's experience this time, Olimpia had to accept it. That night she was awakened by noise. Going to her daughter's room, she discovered Alex trying to take the 2 children and leave. Sensing something wrong, she took advantage of her husband packing toys for the kids and knocked him unconscious with a frying pan. Then she took her daughters downstairs to the restaurant and quietly waited for the ambulance to arrive. After examination, Alex was diagnosed with intermittent psychosis caused by depression. Following the doctor's advice, Olimpia decided to have him admitted for treatment. While she felt utterly helpless, a man approached her. He was named Moreno, a friend of Julio. After learning about Valeria and her husband's incident, Julio had introduced Olimpia to Moreno, saying she was reliable. At that time, Olimpia didn't know that the man in front of her would change her fate completely. The task was simple, similar to what she did in Galicia, but this time it was to Colombia. She had to go with the team to bring back the goods, which were different from Galicia, but the pay was 10 times higher. This time she had to bring back 30 kilograms of drugs worth 300,000 euros. After deducting his commission and payments to the underlings, if everything went smoothly, she could get about 80,000 euros. Upon hearing this, she agreed immediately. Earning 80,000 euros for one transport job tempted Olimpia instantly. But after the incident with Valeria and her husband shortchanging her, she had become more cautious. However, trust could only be built through actual collaboration, as this was a legal business and couldn't be guaranteed by paperwork. So Olimpia said she needed time to think, and Moreno casually gave her 2 days. But what happened next helped her make a quick decision. The next day, as she prepared to take the children out, her parents suddenly appeared at the door. At the dining table, her father was thirsty and went to the kitchen for water. He wondered about the new refrigerator and then called his daughter into another room to talk. He said he knew she wasn't doing legal work. The money could only come from 2 sources: dealing drugs or prostitution. Either way, drugs were men's business. If a woman got involved, she'd be manipulated by others, no different from a whore. He told her not to explain, to think carefully and to stay with her husband. If things were tough, they could help her. Her father's words, though well-intentioned, pierced her deeply. She knew no one but herself could truly help her, so right after her parents left she texted Moreno immediately agreeing to collaborate. The next day Olimpia carried her luggage to the airport. Unexpectedly, right after landing in Colombia, she was followed by someone, and this trip was destined to be far from smooth. Being abroad for the first time without her family, she couldn't avoid feeling tense. After a taxi driver solicited her, she got in and went to the booked hotel. The driver's enthusiasm and humor helped ease her tension. Soon the car stopped in front of a luxurious hotel. Getting out, she double-checked the address with the driver to ensure it was correct before paying. Before leaving, the driver named Raul gave her a business card saying, "Call me anytime for anything." Staying in a luxury hotel for the first time, Olimpia felt no excitement. She just wanted to get the goods quickly and leave, as back home 3 children and a sick husband awaited her care. She opened the envelope on the nightstand. Inside was cash and a phone that Moreno had prepared for her. A few minutes later, Moreno called with bad news. There was an issue with the supplier, so the pickup time had to be delayed by 2 days. Hearing this, Olimpia objected because they had agreed to pick up and return immediately and she had a family to care for. Moreno explained that delays were sometimes unavoidable and assured her she'd be back within 3 days. The sudden change in plans frustrated Olimpia, but thinking of earning €80,000 from this trip, she still called her mother, lying that her cousin had surgery and she needed to stay 2 more days to care for her. After handling family matters, she called Moreno back immediately, informing him she only had 2 days and demanding he arrange the pickup quickly. Moreno told her to treat these 2 days as a vacation with friends, but not to go out at night as it was dangerous. Her underlings were waiting downstairs. Remember, she was their boss and had to make them remember that. Afterward, Olimpia went down to meet the 4 underlings. When she confirmed her identity as the boss, all 4 were stunned. They couldn't believe their leader was a young woman. As they were about to introduce themselves, Olimpia stopped them immediately, saying that in a strange city working with strangers, it was best not to use real names. For ease of communication, she gave each a nickname. Everyone agreed to their nicknames except Fofo, who didn't understand what he meant. Olimpia explained it was a famous clown on TV. Under her guidance, the group had a relaxing day at the beach. But that evening, upon returning to the hotel, trouble arose. Guaparas had sneaked out without telling anyone. Olimpia searched his suitcase and found his passport. With Raul's help, she learned Guaparas's whereabouts. He had gone to a nearby nightclub invited by Raul's friend. At the nightclub, she found Guaparas. Said Lil pulled out his passport from her bag and gave him an ultimatum: either return to the hotel or find his own way back to Spain. After speaking, she turned and left. Helpless, Guaparas followed her obediently into the taxi. Early the next morning, Olimpia received a call from Moreno informing her the goods were ready and she could pick them up anytime. Hanging up, she gathered the underlings to prepare for departure. The 4 traveled in 2 cars, but Olimpia sent the address to Raul because she trusted him more than these people. Following Raul's taxi, the group arrived at an abandoned factory on the outskirts. Inside the factory, they met Mellos, the supplier boss. Knowing Olimpia was sent by Moreno to pick up the goods, Mellos called her aside to inspect them alone. Unexpectedly, Olimpia only checked the quantity, not the authenticity. Her task was to transport the goods regardless of whether the buyer or seller was cheating. But things weren't as simple as she thought. Mellos had evil intentions and the 4 underlings outside had been subdued. Facing this situation, Olimpia showed no fear. Taking advantage of Mellos's inattention, she grabbed a dart from the table and stabbed it hard into his hand. He threatened to deal with her, but she calmly replied, "Shoot, then deal with all of this," and explained to Moreno in 15 minutes. Mellos gritted his teeth and threatened that she wouldn't leave Colombia alive. She picked up the bag of goods and calmly replied, "I don't know about Colombia, but I'm leaving your territory right now." With that, Olimpia carried the bag and walked out of the factory with her underlings. Back at the hotel, the group celebrated. After the party, Olimpia called Guaparas aside. Knowing he spoke English, she handed him the phone, wanting him to call a US hospital to inquire about cancer treatment. But with his broken English, the person on the other end thought he was a drunk, and after a few sentences they hung up. Olimpia took back the phone and chased him out of the room. Once outside and seeing no one, he took out his phone immediately and texted a mysterious person. That's right, Guaparas was the mole. He had informed Aben's henchman, Moreno's sworn enemy, about the group's return time to Spain the next day. Upon receiving the info, Aben ordered his men to eliminate Moreno's contact at the airport. His goal was to steal Moreno's goods and deal with the pickup team. The next day, as planned, Olimpia divided the drugs into small packages wrapped in plastic film around the underlings' bodies, and everything was ready. The group carried their luggage to the airport with Raul still driving them. At the airport, Aben's underlings were ready, waiting for Olimpia and the group to appear. Midway, Moreno called, warning that there was a problem with the internal contact at the airport, so everyone had to change plans and go to another airport. Seeing the situation change, Guaperas relayed the info immediately. Due to excessive tension, his actions aroused Cassius's suspicion. Cassius snatched Guaperas's phone and gave it to Olimpia. Seeing the messages, Olimpia realized there was a traitor beside her. Guaperas tried to jump out of the car and flee, but it was too late. Unable to go to the airport or return to the hotel, Raul took them to a small hotel owned by his friend. Not luxurious but safe. Cassius and the others stripped Guaperas naked and tied him to a chair. Olimpia tore his passport in front of everyone, intending to leave him to fend for himself there. Then, using his phone, she sent vulgar messages cursing Aben's entire family to Aben's underlings. However, Cassius couldn't tolerate a traitor to the organization. Taking advantage of no one watching, he grabbed a steel bar and approached Guaperas. One blow and he was dead instantly. After eliminating the mole, the group drove to a remote area. At Olimpia's signal, the underlings threw Guaperas's body into a lake. Shortly after, Olimpia received a call. The client demanded to abort the cross-border transport mission. Due to the mole in the group, the drugs they held must be returned to the supplier. To protect the team, the client had prepared a safe evacuation route for them. But for Olimpia, this wasn't just a failure but a humiliation. Her stubbornness and unyielding nature wouldn't allow her to give up easily. At that moment, a painting on the wall gave her an idea. Immediately, Olimpia called the taxi driver Raul. While she was figuring out how to transport the goods, she was completely unaware that her mother had gone to her cousin's house in the countryside. Olimpia's lie had been exposed, even though she had hired her cousin and family to act as cover, but no one knew what she was doing. They were discussing what Olimpia might be up to. Her cousin suggested it could be an affair, but her mother denied it immediately. Still unaware of the impending disaster, Olimpia and Raul went to the port. She needed to find a ship that could transport the goods without customs inspection. After much effort, they finally found a captain willing to help with the transport. Both sides agreed on the price and the transport issue was resolved smoothly. After completing the task, Raul drove Olimpia to the long-distance bus station. To express gratitude, Olimpia gave him a large sum of money. But this time Raul refused. After a few days of interaction, he realized this woman was no ordinary person. For Olimpia, Raul was the biggest gain from this Colombia trip. Before parting, she told him her real name. Following the route provided by Moreno, she returned safely to Spain. The first thing she did upon returning was go to the hospital to pick up her husband and bring him home. At the dining table, her mother called her into the kitchen. Before she could say anything, a slap landed on her face. Her mother said she didn't slap her in front of everyone out of respect for her husband and father. Olimpia hadn't betrayed her husband. She just wanted to cure him and give the family a better life. But she couldn't say it all. She didn't want her mother to worry because her work was illegal. That day, she picked up her child from school. Upon arriving downstairs, she saw a large number of police cordoning off the area. Asking neighbors, she learned the police were there to arrest drug criminals. Luckily, the target wasn't her building. Back home, she hurriedly took the money from the box, thinking the police were after her. But just as she put the money in her bag, Alex entered from the door and snatched the bag. Seeing the money, Olimpia knew she couldn't hide anymore. She confessed to her husband about dealing drugs and stuffed the money into his hands, telling him to take the children and leave first. After Alex left, she went downstairs, drove her best friend's car and prepared to escape. Just as she turned the corner, a police officer stopped her. She rolled down the window. The officer looked inside, saw nothing unusual and waved her through. Not long after, Alex received a call from Olimpia saying the alert had been lifted. He should bring the children home. Back home, watching the news, they learned the police had arrested 2 members of a terrorist organization that day. A false panic had made Olimpia extremely tense. She decided to tell her husband the truth about dealing drugs to earn money. She explained she did it all to take him for treatment. There was an experimental method not yet available in Spain, but it was very expensive and they didn't have that much money. But Alex refused treatment and said he wouldn't go anywhere. Unexpectedly, Alex rejected his wife's good intentions completely. He even warned her not to leave the house anymore and to stay with him every day. However, in this tough husband's heart, he fully understood his wife's intentions. He just didn't want Olimpia to take such great risks for him. That night, the two didn't talk and couldn't sleep peacefully. The next day, Alex still called his father-in-law. He knew with his wife's personality he couldn't control her, so he had to tell the truth to his father-in-law, hoping he could persuade his daughter to turn back. Coincidentally, that day was when the ship carrying the goods docked. As scheduled, Olimpia went to the port. After paying the balance, her 3 underlings stepped out of the ship's hold. Then, following the address provided by Moreno, the group went to a warehouse where they delivered the goods. While Caches and the others entered the warehouse, Moreno came to the car and paid Olimpia for the transport costs. Olimpia took the money and returned home to find her father standing downstairs. She knew this day would come sooner or later but didn't expect it so soon. Her father advised her to stop. As long as she came home to care for her husband and children, everything before could be as if it never happened. Unexpectedly, Olimpia refused outright because now she couldn't turn back. Then she revealed the real reason. Her father couldn't earn that much money in his lifetime. This made her father angry and speechless. In the end, unable to persuade her, her father turned silently and left. From that day, her parents almost cut off contact with her. Meanwhile, Moreno's sworn enemy still had his eyes on Olimpia. Aben had sent an assassin to eliminate the woman who dared insult him over the phone. As for Olimpia, she wasn't idle either. Learning that the shipment she brought back had been transported to Italy and the transporter had skimmed 40% of the profits, she discussed with Moreno that she could handle that transport too. So the two agreed and Olimpia expanded her own drug dealing network. She used her abilities to establish an exclusive international transport route. To balance her family, she assigned cross-border drug transport to her underlings while she directed from behind and developed new sales channels with partners. Seeing Olimpia making money from drug dealing, her best friend Trini wasn't content to rely only on her hair salon business. She expressed interest in joining Olimpia but was refused immediately. It wasn't because Trini lacked ability or trust. Olimpia had entered this path out of desperation. She didn't want her closest friend to put herself in danger too. She asked what if she ended up like Marga. Trini replied, then it's your bad luck, but Olimpia didn't want to go through that again. People are like that. One side wants the best for the other but the other doesn't understand at all. Olimpia's worries weren't unfounded as the assassin sent by Aben from Colombia had arrived. The target was this Spanish woman. That day the assassin Orson saw a good opportunity when Moreno met Olimpia alone to discuss business. Recently Moreno had contacted an Italian buyer. If the price negotiation succeeded, the goods in hand could be shipped to Italy in 10 days. But there was a small issue. The Italians preferred direct dealings and would come next week. More importantly, they didn't like women running things in this world. If Moreno showed up, it would break the rules and harm business. So Olimpia had to find a solution. After speaking, Moreno stood to pay the bill. Orson, who had been following them, seized the moment quickly and prepared to draw his gun to eliminate Olimpia. But unexpectedly, before he could pull the gun, Orson became too tense. His heart raced, his legs went weak, and as a result he missed the perfect assassination opportunity. He could only watch helplessly as the two left right in front of him. That night Orson returned to the hotel and repeatedly watched cop and criminal movies on TV to hone his assassin skills. Just then his sister Elle called asking if he had acted yet. When she learned he hadn't, she said she could have Aben assign him something else. Orson refused firmly, saying he was born for this job. No need to tell Aben and don't think about replacing him. To prove he could become an excellent assassin, he was determined to take down that woman the next time he got a chance. The next day the opportunity he awaited arrived. Olimpia invited her brother Manuel to pretend to be the big boss to meet the partners. While the siblings were learning Italian, her sister Isa called saying Olimpia's oldest daughter had a stomachache and had been taken to the hospital. Hanging up, she and Koches drove away from the warehouse, immediately completely unaware of a motorcycle tailing them. After the doctor examined her daughter, it was just mild gastritis. After leaving the exam room, the mother and daughter sat on a bench outside the hospital gate. While Koches and Isa went to get the car, Orson appeared. He approached Olimpia, drew his gun and shot straight at the woman in front of him. However, that scene was only in his mind. Just as he was about to act, a police car arrived and stopped right at the gate. Two officers escorted a criminal into the hospital, then the police car left. Seeing the danger pass, Orson advanced toward Olimpia again. Before he could take a few steps, Koches drove up to pick up the mother and daughter. They left the hospital quickly. Orson missed another chance to become an excellent assassin. Just as they disappeared, Aben called. Orson trembled as he looked at the ringing phone, not daring to answer. Back at the hotel, the phone rang again. Seeing it was from his sister, he pressed answer quickly. But unexpectedly, the person on the other end was Aben. Knowing the assassination mission had failed again, Aben gave him an ultimatum. Act now. If Olimpia doesn't go to heaven, you'll be the one who does. Returning from the hospital, Olimpia sought out her mother, begging her to convince her father to meet her. She knew if the father-daughter relationship wasn't mended, she'd never be able to step foot in her parents' home again. Under her mother's persuasion, her father agreed to meet and talk. Olimpia decided she would hand over the business to her brother Manuel to manage while she returned home to be with her husband and children and live a normal life. Thinking this stalling plan could resolve the family crisis temporarily, but unexpectedly her father knew his daughter too well. Though Manuel was capable, he was cowardly and fundamentally not suited to be a drug lord. Olimpia was the opposite, strong-willed, decisive, always wanting to become what others said she couldn't. He said when she was little he told her she'd do great things, but not this. The plan failed and father and daughter parted in discord once more. Soon after came the day to meet the Italian mafia boss. During price negotiations, Manuel acted as if he were the real boss. Lacking knowledge of the industry, he lost 10% of the bargaining power immediately. Luckily, Moreno was there to smooth things over, allowing both sides to reach an agreement. Olimpia heard the entire process clearly through Moreno's phone. It seemed her father's words were right. Manuel truly wasn't suited for drug dealing. But things had come to this, so Olimpia had to accept it. Back at the warehouse, they packed the goods into specially modified cars to show respect to the Italians. The first shipment was personally escorted by Manuel because in the Italians' eyes he was still the boss. But Moreno expressed concern about whether those two could be trusted. Olimpia assured him it wouldn't fail. That evening Moreno pulled Olimpia into the city. He wanted to do something he'd always wanted but never dared: take a tourist bus to sightsee and experience being a tourist. Since tickets were sold out, he had to buy two at a high price from a couple. Meanwhile, the assassin Orson followed behind and snatched a ticket from a child. As the bus passed an intersection, Orson stood up slowly, preparing to act. At that moment, Olimpia wanted to switch seats with Moreno. Seeing Orson charging with a gun, Olimpia pushed him down and pulled Moreno off the bus. Orson chased and caught up quickly, but just as he raised the gun, a car from the side sped in and crashed straight into him. Seizing the opportunity, Olimpia and Moreno escaped quickly. Orson, the one dreaming of becoming an excellent assassin, lay collapsed in the road with regret. A moment later, he felt his heart beating abnormally fast. He woke PH in the passenger seat hurriedly, but by then his legs were numb. In panic, the car rolled down the roadside grass and the drugs hidden under the chassis scattered everywhere. Having just escaped death, Olimpia received a call reporting an incident. To avoid another assassin, Olimpia moved her family out of the house that night. On the way, she called Moreno to report safety. Knowing the other side was investigating the assassin's background, she hung up quietly and awaited results. When she saw a car tailing them, Olimpia tensed immediately. Seeing Gordo showed no reaction, she didn't pay too much attention. A while later, the car stopped at a villa gate. This was Moreno's friend's house, where she could stay as long as she wanted. As she prepared to get out, she saw the tailing car again. She told Gordo to turn around immediately, but he reassured her it was her bodyguard. Stepping out, a bald man approached them. The man named Yuri was the personal bodyguard Moreno had arranged for Olimpia. After settling the family and waiting for the children to fall asleep, Olimpia went out. Soon after, Manuel drove up knowing about the transport vehicle's accident. Moreno had sent people to bring him and Fo back immediately. But little goods remained on the vehicle, and since they didn't arrive on time, they needed a reasonable explanation for the buyer. For the trouble caused by her brother, Olimpia naturally couldn't ignore it. So the siblings decided to go to Italy themselves to explain the situation to the buyer. But unexpectedly, her sister-in-law insisted on coming along. Just because Manuel returned home disheveled, she thought her husband had a mistress and demanded to go to see what they were up to. Helpless Olimpia had to bring her sister-in-law. On the way, Moreno called to confirm that the one who sent the assassin was Aben. After learning Caches would handle him, she was satisfied. Manuel used his halting Italian to explain the delay and promised a bigger discount next time. But unexpectedly, the Italians didn't accept the explanation, believing they had been tricked. The bodyguard nearby held a gun, seemingly ready to deal with the group on the spot. Olimpia tried to explain more, but the Italians didn't like doing business with women and asked why she talked so much. She retorted immediately and affirmed she was the group's boss. Seeing her brother Manuel too scared to speak, Olimpia stepped forward, declared her boss status to the buyer, and re-explained the delay. She committed that if the other side paid an additional deposit, she'd double the discount on the next shipment. Witnessing the woman's strength and authority, the Italians changed their attitude immediately and gave them a week. On the way back, during conversation, her sister-in-law mentioned accidentally that Olimpia's parents were hosting an anniversary party. As soon as she said it, she realized Olimpia hadn't been invited. On the party day, Olimpia brought her children to her parents' house. When leaving, she encountered distant relatives she had met before. They used to greet warmly but now pretended not to know her to avoid involvement. Witnessing this, Olimpia found it hard to accept and had her bodyguard take her home. A while later, she changed into an evening gown and returned. The lively party fell silent suddenly when she appeared. In front of everyone, Olimpia stated her true intention to change her current life. But unexpectedly, her actions made her parents feel embarrassed. After a big argument, her father declared the party over. Just like that, she became the most unwelcome person in the family. Among the crowd, only her sister Isa saw through it all and comforted her, saying there was nothing to be ashamed of. Everyone was like that, they just lacked the courage to admit it. Back home, Olimpia found an empty sleeping pill bottle in the bathroom. The missing pills made her sense something was wrong. She went to the kitchen and saw Alex making waffles. Under questioning, Alex admitted finally he had mixed sleeping pills into the batter. He wanted to take the children away before she woke up. She questioned if their daughter ate the waffles then. Was Alex out of his mind? As Olimpia left the kitchen, Alex chased her with a knife to his own throat. Seeing this, she asked if this was the liberation he wanted, abandoning her like a coward who would care for the children. At the stairs, she saw bodyguard Yuri had appeared. When she turned back, Yuri had subdued the deranged husband. To prevent Alex from suicide, she went to Alex's brother and paid €600 a week for him to watch over the man. Just after handling the crazed husband, trouble arose in Colombia. Koches, sent to assassinate Aben, was recognized accidentally by someone. Seeing his identity exposed, he contacted Moreno hurriedly. But no one expected that at this time Moreno was lying unconscious on an empty lot outside a casino, his life hanging in the balance. With no other choice, Koches had to call Olimpia to report the failure. Seeing this, Olimpia told him to run quickly. But it was too late to escape. Aben's underlings had guns to his head. He said his final goodbye to Olimpia. After the farewell, Koches fell under the opponent's gunfire. The man threatened that her underling was done for and she was next. Her right-hand man eliminated her partner's fate unknown, left alone. How would Olimpia face the upcoming challenges? Here ends the first part of the Olimpia family.